I was saying to Niles, you guys might want to consider putting more in, but like, do we want to think about that up in the Culture Arts District too? If we do get like a municipal parking thing or something?
Yep, and charge for it.
We're live now.
We're live.
You asked to go live.
That's right,
Let's
yes.
do
All
it.
right. So this is the beginning of the Poolesville Planning Commission meeting. Date is September 17th, and it is exactly 7 o'clock in the evening. Yeah. So let us get started. Do we have any online comments or?
Nope.
No citizens' comments? Announcements? You want to start us off, Brian? What announcements you got for us?
Well, we haven't been meeting much as a group last 6 weeks. I think we've met twice as commissioners. No big decisions made that I think of. Now, is there anything that I'm?
In August, we had the budget closeout, as we do every year, so that was adopted. Outside of that, it's been sort of more catching up the commissioners on what's going on.
I don't want to say boring, but I'll say tranquil.
Tranquil's good.
Tranquil's good.
What about, yeah.
Staff. So we have no big announcements. We're working on various things. The streetscape project. We have in the design phase now. We had the notice to proceed on the design, so we're in the phase on that. We also this week, Wade and I met with the state regarding the renewal of our permits, which we talked about a couple of months ago in terms of our plan and what we plan to do forward. So that was a good conversation prior to us applying for the renewal of those permits. So we're just going through some details on that. And so we'll have more details once we get a little bit further in that process. But it's in alignment with what we had presented earlier. And then, as I mentioned before everybody came in, we are waiting on potentially 2 variances to come before this body. We don't have the applications yet, so we can't sort of proceed yet. But just for future meeting purposes, we might have those coming up.
Can you go back to me?
Yes.
Okay, I remember something. It's not fully commissioner body related, but Alan Hobbs and I met with the Department of Parks. I think I might have mentioned this in the last meeting, and there's an interest in creating a sticker or an emblem of some sort that local businesses can use to show they welcome bikers and hikers. Since this is a big biking area and we're so our proximity to the C&O Canal. So I mentioned it to Green Valley because they were at an event that I was at, and the next day they sent me something. Green Valley did. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool, and it included Sugarloaf Mountain because that's part of their thing, and we sent that along to the state, and they were like, this is great. Let's move on with it. Like this is exactly what we're looking for.
Wonderful.
So there should be some. It is kind of. I was on vacation for a bit, and it's kind of hit the skids and not really moved very far in the last couple of weeks, but hope to pick up on that and move it along. And it's not going to be a state thing until we get it going, but once we get it going, they may say, hey, this is it. We'll adopt it as our state. Yeah.
Oh, that's exciting. Yeah. All right. John, can you give us a quick update on our builds that are happening? Do you mind?
Construction sites.
Yes. I know that wasn't on the agenda, but it would be.
It's fine. Willard property, the water and sewer are in place. They're currently running conduit for the project site. They're probably going to be soil cementing the roadways next week and bring that up to grade. The excavation that you're seeing right now is they're going through the basements where they know they have rock and digging out the rock and replacing it with soil. The townhouse project, that's moving along. They started into their prairie build on that, although they do have water and sewer, so they are able to hook up water and sewer. So that's going on. They're currently installing electrical conduit. The Hart's property, they're down off of Hertzberger. They just cleared Hertzberger today and put in temporary patching. And they're working across 107, and they should be across hopefully tomorrow or on Friday. and that's moving forward. There are some revisions that'll happen to the plats as soon as we get the approval for, this is at Willard's property. As soon as we get the approval from Montgomery County for the stormwater management. And that shifts some lines around a little bit, but doesn't impact any of the houses or any house lot lines that are currently in place. They're stormwater management lines. So everything's moving forward on that. And Grace's Cottages, which is a 3-unit subdivision, we did have a application come in for the first build on that, and that has been processed. And you're going to also see around town in a month or so, street repairs and sidewalk repairs and all kinds of great things like that that'll be taking place, and curb and gutter replacement.
Do you have any idea, like just ballpark, when the project should be getting close to completion?
Which one?
All, like the 3 main ones?
Okay, so as far as build out, okay, that's dependent upon sales and how they go. The Willard project, they're expecting probably 3 years for build out on that. Townhouses, again, depends on how sales go. That's probably in a 2-year time frame. And the Hart's property, I would think those are pretty big lots and going to be pretty big houses, and so I'm thinking that may be 3 to 4 years.
Okay, thank you.
And those are only guesstimates because it depends on how the hell sales go.
Of course.
Okay. Did everyone get a chance to look at the minutes? Any modifications, changes, comments?
Make a motion to approve the June 11th meeting minutes as written.
I actually mentioned, there's something missing under new business. I thought someone else would catch it, I'm sorry.
She baited you, Brian.
That was a total
Like, I dare you to make that motion.
Under new business,
Retract the
5.1,
motion.
we, is missing our decision on that
Yeah.
agenda item, so Niles, with
I
that,
guess it didn't save properly is what I'm thinking, but regardless, I will fix that. I'll just add in, you guys, for the record, you guys recommended approval of the variance, and I'll put in the language there as the amendment.
I didn't mean to do that, you were so fast.
Oh, come on, I waited. I counted.
You want,
No, I'm done. Once bitten, twice shy.
any other changes?
Do we need to note there was no July or August meeting? I don't know if that's necessary.
That's not necessary from the
Okay.
minutes point of view. On the website reflects that there's a canceled meeting, and I put an agenda online for the work session. Technically, it was a
Yeah.
public meeting.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
It just was the substitute for it. And so if someone had wanted to attend the work session, they could have. But we don't normally, just as a point of reference, we don't normally do minutes for work sessions because you can't make a decision in a work session anyways.
Yeah.
And so the agenda is the minutes. We discussed this.
Right.
That is what was discussed. So
Perfect.
that's just for the record there.
Okay.
Would anyone like to make a motion?
I make a motion, we approve the minutes with Lexi's revision.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Always safe to let Lexi get in and make her comments on it first.
I thought someone was going to catch it. All right, no new business, so we move on.
Brian forgot.
I did.
We move on to old business. And Niles, do you want to start us on this?
Certainly. So I think what we'll do, depending on how John wants to do things, but I put up what we got there. So I'm just going to read briefly and then we'll shoot to it. So as we were just discussing, at the August work session, Planning Commission provided guidance and potential recommendations on changes to the parking, streetscape, zoning, and design guidelines for the Cultural Arts District. To support these recommendations, the staff have been working on more detailed plans for your review. Some of that we'll talk about is still coming. This work and the topics that will be discussed are outlined below. So the first thing to note is that staff has done as a task our surveying contractor to further survey. You looked at a sort of broad survey, I guess is the best way of saying it.
We had a concepts survey.
And what we're going to try to do over the next few weeks here is get a more detailed survey. We're sending out letters to the property owners regarding what we'll be doing and getting their permission to go on the property if we need to get the data that we're looking at. And so those letters went out this week. And then also, what John's going to get into a bit is the stormwater management and some of the other stuff from a previous presentation he'd given to this body, so we'll talk about that in conjunction with looking at West Willard as the prototype road for some of the improvements that we're looking at, such as on-street parking there, creating parking bays, and things like that. So I'm going to turn it over to John on that, and then we'll come back with some other things.
Okay, so this presentation was done to the commissioners a while ago. And we actually went out and did a survey of the existing stormwater management and the drainage areas and looked at what choke points we have at the present time. As you know, the town, when they did a lot of the design work, it wasn't comped to determine what those drainage areas would be or where they went. So they kind of stuck the pipe in the ground, and which creates issues. Also, in the Arts District, there are numerous places where the stormwater management is relatively flat, and everybody goes, "Oh, great, you got a flat site." Well, that's not so great because flat doesn't drain real well. To complicate it even more, certain segments of the stormwater management system is owned by the county, which we have to connect and then make the case for improvements. Okay, next slide. This is just a discussion of what took place, discussion what's in place, and what items do we need to address. I just talked about that a little bit, and what are the anticipated costs involved. So this was done when we were all talking about commercial area, and that's what we looked at, which is basically that Arrowhead all the way back up to West Willard and a little bit beyond. So we broke it down into four different drainage areas that that we wanted to look at because of the existing stormwater management system. And the one that we're really curious about in this case is Area A, the study Area A. Okay. And when we looked at that's the drainage area for Area A, and that's, you can kind of see where West Willard is, and also the four-way intersection at Elgin.
Can I, before we go any farther, can I ask a quick question? Are the drainage areas like small watershed areas, or are they just pipe? Like, are we looking at structure, or are we looking at small watersheds?
Basically, it's a small area that drains to this pipe.
Okay.
Pipes.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry, I wasn't sure
Sure.
what we were talking about. Okay, please
Sure.
proceed.
Okay. So as you can see, the areas that are highlighted in orange there, those are choke points, and it creates problems for draining the area, be it due to slope or be it due to the size of the pipe. And some of the structures may not be adequate to handle them, so we do have some improvements that have to be made. Now, if you go where that thin piece is at the very top, yep. Okay, that's actually owned by Montgomery County, that segment of the line. So when we tie into it, we're going to have to address that, which then presents other problems in that when this was designed, all we cared about was moving the water off the area. Now we have to deal with quality. Being flat, that presents other problems. So one of the ideas, if you look at the end of that little narrow spot all the way down towards there, you see that kind of circular thing just above it? If you go above, there's right there.
Yeah.
That's actually a regional stormwater management pond that is part of the swimming pool facility. And what we think we might be able to do is possibly get in what they call a pre-bay. In other words, that may be an area that we can get the quality portion of it before it goes into the regional stormwater management pond. In other words, we pre-treat before it's discharged into this pond. Otherwise, we're probably going to have some problems trying to deal with it. And we'll get into that more as we go into it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's go to the next slide. And since this is kind of a broad educational thing that we're going to talk about. So the town itself, and since a lot of we're talking about infill and things like that, not necessarily in the art district, but within the commercial district, we have to address certain things. Some of this is already being addressed with the development of the Willard property. But we still know we have problems on Norris Road. There's inadequate drainage facilities there that have to be addressed at some point. But we are catching some of those problems with the Fisher Avenue section with the development of the Willard property. Dollar General, if you recall, if you worked on some of those that worked, we ended up having to upgrade the size of piping that came out of Dollar General, and then also into the back of the Dollar General property. You can kind of see some of that in that one stick that kind of runs out back. All right. Well, and then we get down to the next section, which is the townhouse section. I think that's the Elgin, the Wooten, Wooten Avenue section. And the good news there is from the skate park down, we actually down to the edge of the skate park. That stormwater management is of adequate sizing. So we're not having to change anything there, which is, that's a good thing. Okay, more. And then the section that runs out in front of Fisher Avenue coming down the hill. The portion off of Wooten Avenue is of adequate size, but what comes down the Wooten Avenue or Fisher Avenue is has issues, and that was actually done by the state of Maryland back in the 60s, as I've been guessing. So it was never intended for the amount of development that took place. At some point, that will need to be addressed. The section the new townhouse section that's across the street, both the one that's under development and the one that was just recently developed, both of those sections of stormwater management are adequate for the flows that come in. So at some point, that line will need to be upgraded, and how that's going to take place is going to be costly.
Yeah, it's the biggest part of the cost, which you'll see in a second.
Okay. So this is a couple years old, so of course prices have gone up. The section that we were talking about coming out of the Arts District, they're looking at $230,000 of upgrades there. The other section, the Norris Road section, you're looking at $502,000. And the Section D, which is the one that comes down Fisher Avenue down towards Wooten, that's $609,000. I'd probably add 20% to those numbers at the present time. All right, any questions?
You're doing great.
All right. Just want to get through where we were next.
Out of curiosity, have you
Yeah.
started thinking about the next study areas? Are there other areas with water and drainage issues that are sort of on the horizon?
We haven't been requested to look at anywhere else. We were just asked to look at this because we knew that we had a problem with stormwater management within the PCOM area. So we actually did some of the calculations. And one of the things that we're going to talk about later, after we get done with the PowerPoints, is how we're going to resolve some of these issues. And some of it could be costly, and then there's other ways that we may be able to mitigate a little bit of that cost.
Yeah, so what I had put next, but I don't know if you want to. Do you want to talk about some of the stuff that we've done previously, or do you want to talk about West Willard?
Not West Willard yet. I want to go back to the other presentation. this
Sure, yep,
presentation.
it's up here.
Okay, yep.
I just wanted to make sure.
Before you go there, I have a kind of a sort of parallel question. It's not super related, but kind of related. We've in the past talked about redevelopment in some certain areas. I won't go into, would those, hypothetically speaking, if we were to redevelop townhomes, let's just say, would they necessarily be the same size? In other words, I guess I'm asking about water allocation. Like, how would that work? Like, if they were to somehow be bigger and use more water, would that?
Well, it depends on what type of structure it is, because the town works within structures. Townhouses get one allocation
Yeah.
limit, and single families
The
get
size of it doesn't so much matter.
No, it
Right,
could be a
That's all.
grandiose place.
Yeah, it more has to do with how much, like, really how big the lawn is.
Right.
Because the issue, the reason why there's different allocations is really has to do with lawn usage than anything else.
Okay.
So that's why we allocate it differently.
So there's a couple of things that happen in a redevelopment depends on how things are redeveloped.
Sure.
You could end up in a stormwater management issue.
Yeah,
That's okay.
You're good. Yep.
You could end up in a stormwater management issue because now you've disturbed a certain amount of area, and now you have to address. You can't use the old stormwater ways that it was done in. Okay. Then also you can get into a forest conservation because some of these houses were built back when forest conservation was around. So now you have to provide for forest conservation. I'm assuming you're talking in the townhouse areas or someplace like that, and also in the downtown section. And that's one of the reasons that the wise decision by the commissioners set up an area for a forest bank so that can be addressed and you don't have little lots of that. So, all right. So remember when we first started out and we did what the Cultural Arts District streetscape idea was and where we're going with that, right? All right, so we got to define the items which to be included within the right-of-way that's street level. Now, we kind of went down that road and we talked about trees and plants and things, and what we came up with a 10-foot sidewalk that we wanted to address. So that's in address pedestrian crossings. What we intend is not to have mid-block crossings, because that creates all kinds of hazards to the pedestrian traffic. So we would like to have it at the corners. Now, That being said, at the Baptist Church at Wooten, that if you go straight down Wooten and you continued on, that actually is a town right-of-way that's owned by the town. It shows up as a parking lot for the Baptist Church, but it's something that an agreement is in place to help people.
Keep going.
Okay, all right. So we would hope to have the crossings at those points, at Fisher, on West Willard, and at Wooten at West Willard. Okay.
Yep.
All right. So again, we're talking about the West Willard corridor only. This is one that they would hope to move forward with in a rapid way. There's a couple of things that are going to happen when you come up down that way that will be that are unusual, and it's being driven by the old church that was there. And I'm not sure how to do this.
Just
Click it. All right. So we decided on a typical section, something like this, but it would be 10 feet wide. Now, for the walkway, and that does not include the curbing or the gutter pan. And the reason it varies up at the property line is sometimes the buildings are set back a little bit, and sometimes you don't want it just a straight flat face. If you recall, we went down this road once before. We talked about the form-based and how it all plays out, and how it can change the way it looks. All right, walkways. One of the things that we talked about also was we want to try to keep it as low in maintenance as possible. Now, the one thing about the trees that I was thinking about this the other night, if we set the trees too close to the road, we're still going to have agricultural equipment coming down that roadway. And if you have agricultural equipment coming down that roadway and those trees branches are 8 feet, and 8 feet is great for people, but not so great, and also general cars. But that ag equipment is pretty big. So we may have to shift those trees back a little bit and incorporate it in some manner there. Okay. All right, stamped asphalt patterns. Well, you just asked Preston. He gets all the kudos for picking that bright red color that went in. And those bright red colors are just going to go in high visibility areas. So, but we would like to use the stamped asphalt pattern to help delineate those crossing areas, so that it gives a little bit of a texture to the neighborhoods. Okay, next. All right. Again, there are limiting factors. ADA is one of them. Stormwater management issues, that'll be a big one that we're going to have to overcome. Okay. On the ADA, we've got to watch that very closely, especially in front of the theater, or when they're building the theater there, because that theater's coming soon.
Yep. They're, on Riverworks, they are hoping to have groundbreaking soon, a formal groundbreaking. They will have a little event on Poolesville Day, but that path is coming soon for what they're doing, the addition onto the old Methodist church and all of that. So some of this will have to happen soon regardless, because part of it is incorporating the streetscape. It's also worth noting, as I noted on the budget in the memo, this is already something, improvements to the sidewalk is something that the commissioners have already approved budgetarily. So there are things that we can sort of move on in terms of this, but that's just the other thing to keep in mind.
Okay.
This slide actually makes me, I have a question. Will there actually be trash cans? Because there are no trash cans in the town of Poolesville that isn't on, like, parkland.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's definitely something that's missing.
But there could be that. Again, that gets into that streetscape development process. We envision park benches and things like that too, and we'll talk about that in the next section. Parking locations, we're going to talk about that. Also, again, back to the ag equipment.
Yeah.
This is in Rockville, and it's pretty inventive a way of dealing with the stormwater management. The trees are planted within the bioswales, and the bioswales run underneath the sidewalk. We were able to do some of that, the porous concrete up in Oxley Farm. If you ever go back there, you'll notice the sidewalks are porous concrete there. And those are actually part of the stormwater management process. I know everybody thinks it's ugly, it's not effective, they don't like it. It presents problems for what we are used to, where we throw tons of salt down on the ground, and pervious concrete and salt do not get together at all. So it would take a little bit of a different educational process. And putting in the brick pattern can present problems if you choose to, because that is, it has to be ADA compliant, and if there's limits to what they can do. And especially if you're in a wheelchair or you have walking problems, that can create real headaches. Okay.
Those bricks look nice, though.
Yeah.
All right. This is another biofilter system. This one's in Kentlands, I believe. And this is the way that they handle it. Biggest thing is to keep maintenance down. Again, frontage characteristics of buildings. We're not going to talk about that right now, but we are going to talk about after we get done talking about the street and on-street parking. I'd like to start thinking in the way of limits of what the impervious surface is going to be within a particular lot. In other words, in our code, in our world, the impervious surface is the roof, okay, of the building. In the county's code, it is the impervious surface being the parking lots, sidewalks, and things like that. And where I'd like to go with this is into a percentage based upon the county's code, so we can talk about what we're looking for. Okay, so again, it's a vision of what we're trying to come up with. We would like to incorporate form-based buildings, and also see where we're going to go with that, and try to develop a snapshot of what the future should look like. Okay, now on to.
And then I'm going to just switch over. Just give me a second. See if they have questions on that, but I'll switch over to the other thing. I'll just do it this way. Why doesn't it have it? Okay, hang on.
Any questions before we jump down this rabbit hole?
I know you're planning, West Willard, you're saying might be the
It's a prototype.
starting an approach, yeah. Would that be your vision for how the rest of it might look, or would you might incorporate different things?
You may incorporate different things if you want to change the character as you go along. Because some of the roads, I mean, for instance, Norris doesn't have the width that West Willard does.
Yeah.
Wooten on this side, you have a little bit more of an opening area that you can incorporate into. Morningstar's kind of, that's the Poolesville Plumbing and Morningstar present of different things that'll have to be addressed eventually, I'm sure. All right.
And try to make it full screen.
Yeah, if you can.
I'll just try to do it this way.
There you go.
All right.
All right, so we looked at tying into the area. The blue line is the back of the sidewalk, and the green line right there is tying in the curb. We were able to, by widening that out to 20 feet, we were able to incorporate the parking bays, 9 parking bays, on-street parking bays that run up towards the Riverworks site. If you go back up to the top, and you see that little bump out there, that's where we thought maybe park benches or something along those lines could be set if you wished. There is a stormwater management box and a storm drain that it serves to go across the street. We do need to get additional information. We have the inverts for that, but we have to look at the outfall. Now, we do know we have, it's pretty rough as far as trying to get the fall. There's not a lot of contour there on the roadway. And the way it works right at the current time is the water spills onto the property. Well, we're going to put a curb in the way, right? So now it's going to block the water. So we're going to have to address that in some manner or form. That probably is going to require some inlet structures to carry it down. So it just becomes an issue that'll have to be addressed. We may actually have to put, depending on where everything falls and how it falls, we may have to put a curb inlet on the back side of the sidewalk in order to catch, so we're not ponding water in the properties. All right. And as we come down, then we come to the driveway for the Riverworks complex. And at that point, we're going to have to transition from a 10-foot sidewalk to a 5-foot sidewalk because the existing building blocks the ability for us to continue on down. So we're going to have to address that.
How do I go? Unzoom. That's ridiculous. And go control. There we go. Just had to do control.
Yeah.
There we go.
Okay. All right. So in front of the Riverworks facility, which will be a larger facility in stage complex, we're going to have to go ahead and bring it into a 5-foot and then transition it back to a 10-foot. Now, as we move down Wooten Avenue, or West Willard, I'm sorry,
Yep.
West Willard, towards, it's the next slide.
I'm on the next page.
Okay, you're
Yep.
on the next page, okay. All right, so then we transition back, but we do not have on-street parking there. And the reason we went that route was that particular piece of property has, remember, we're trying to build this now. And if we went for a 20-foot easement on where that house is, I'm not sure we'd be able to get the 20-foot. We can get the 10, we think we can get the 10-foot, because that's just 5, there's 5 feet existing at the present time, so it's an additional 5 feet, based upon the approximate right-of-way that's in place. So that gives us, getting us down to Wooten Avenue, and that is where we would put a crossing in and go across the roadway. We'd have to also probably put in a ramp on the Wooten Avenue. And remember, Wooten continues straight across. You can see where that property line falls. Evidently, there's some agreements or something for the Baptist church
Yes.
use their property.
Yep, yes, and yeah, we're trying to find exactly, because this is, if you look at the Baptist church, there's an area where we have a sidewalk that goes all the way back to the other part. Technically, it's like 60-foot wide, I think, is the whole easement. Part of that easement is taken up by the Baptist church parking lot, and seems to be, trying to find the paperwork on it, but there seems to be an agreement between the Baptist church and the town for them to allow to use that part as parking for them. So if we wanted to do anything further down there, we'd have to revisit that.
So that's a concept right now. I haven't brought in the landscape architect yet to planning out the trees and stuff and the spacing. Also, we'd like to put lights on the street. You remember, this is going to be the prototype for what's to follow. Brian in our office is a registered landscape architect, and we've talked about it a couple of times. And we'll have a good product. We want to have the best product we can.
And this, obviously, it's things like this that the more detailed survey will help us get a few of the data points that we need to do some of the more finer tune.
To fine tune this, because I'm sure there's going to be some stormwater management that's going to have to be addressed. Which leads into the final section of the discussion tonight. We need to come up with some idea, since we don't know what the facilities are going to look like, the buildings that are going to go on this section, and what the future looks like as far as footprints and where we're going to allow it. We kind of need to know how much impervious surface that you're looking at allowing. Is it 60%? Is it 90%? Is it 80%? Because you're going to have to address that at some point to determine for stormwater management, so that we can figure out not how to address the quality, but address the quantity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so the idea would be to engineer the whole area for future.
For future, we want to do it once, we want to do it 10 times.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that if we decided 90%, you'd have to have that much more capacity.
That's right, yeah. Now, where that 80% plays into, or whatever the number is, we can kind of take guesses at it, but we can't be sure at this point how we're going to deal with it at 100%. But it needs to be considered.
And so if we also put in, I don't know if this is even possible, but rules about the types of surfaces that could go in there, that would then impact the...
Well, Montgomery County is an interesting place. Most places think that gravel is pervious. Montgomery County doesn't think it is pervious. They count it as impervious. So, but if you go to a, like grass pavers or something like that, then they would consider it to be pervious. So, grass pavers are fantastic as long as you're not running 24/7 over them. You drive 24/7 over top of them, and it doesn't hold up.
So, but I think just piggybacking on that, so it's like trying to figure out what the balance is. So just as a note on our current regulations, there's no, for example, there's no lot coverage requirement in the commercial zone. There is for residential, but for businesses, there isn't. So even from that standard, we don't have a requirement. So that's part of the way we're thinking about this. Do we want to have, as we said in Martin's Additions where I worked, they had it as a non-vegetative surface requirement. So what percentage do you want to a maximum to be for parking for, those type of surfaces, you know.
And some of these things may not be addressed at this time. It should be noted, though, and this will be a question for the commissioners. Are they going to put a front benefit charge in place?
And we,
Say that again, the what? bit?
Front benefit charge. In other
That
words,
was- Yeah.
so you have an improvement that needs to be done, right? And at some point, where the new, if I don't get it right, when a new person comes forward and they say, "Oh, we want to tie into your storm drain system," okay, and we say, "Okay, fantastic, we're all good for that," but it's going to cost you because of the amount of footage that you have fronting the building and what the impacts are going to be. Or the other option is what they call an off-site improvement. Now, an off-site improvement was sort of what we did with Dollar General. Dollar General came in and they said, "Hey, we want to do this." The landowner in back said, "We need a stormwater management system." And they put the pipe in here, and how the two parties worked out that additional cost for stormwater management, that was between the two. We were kind of in the middle of presiding in a negotiation process.
What about places that already have a lot of impervious surface? How does that figure out? Like Bassett's?
Well, that already counts into it. When we did that section A, we looked at that because that told us how much runoff there was going to be towards the existing structures. So we knew what we were dealing with there. But in the future, you probably want to come up with some kind of an idea, so that in case the town were to go ahead and upgrade the pipes, we would, or the storm drainage system, we'd know we'd have an idea what they anticipate coming to it.
and like most things with our zoning and such, these rules only really affect new stuff. So we would have to do things like get easements and things like that to engage with things as existing, which we talked about in that case, versus, say, making these requirements as part of the build process for redevelopment, right? So limiting the impervious surface or having benefits charges or things like that, or offsite improvements or things like that.
One of the things that we could do is go ahead and go through the process of looking at it, kind of a sliding scale. Say, what are you looking at 50%? What are you looking at 60, 70, 80% lot coverage? Because whether it doesn't matter how you chop the pie up, it's still a whole pie, right? So if you know what that percentage is that you're dealing with, then you can address it.
Yeah, I was wondering if there's a way to have some sort of structure where if they went with 50%, if they only used 50% lot coverage, there would be different potentially upfront improvement charges, but I guess we need to plan for that, right? We need to be able to plan for, and in that case, we'd be planning for the max.
For the maximum,
Yeah.
and hopefully you don't hit the maximum.
Yep.
So is there any?
Well, so stormwater aside, what feels right for this type of a project, this type of a?
I'm guessing that you're looking at a higher density is what you want to go to, right? And the density in this case, most people think density people, right?
Right.
Well, it's not people. In this case, it's not. It's higher density in the impervious world. Okay, and so the impervious surfaces, I'm thinking 80% would be the maximum that you'd ever want to go to.
Right.
Because you've got to count for stormwater facilities. And if they want to go to that and they can show us, so for instance, CVS up here, or I'm sorry, the Tractor Supply, take your pick, whatever you want to call that facility. They actually have underground storage in there. And that's the way they treat that runoff. So if you had somebody come in and say, hey, I want to go ahead and put underground storage in here, you may be able to basically pave the entire thing.
Right.
But then you still have to account for it in your calculations. I think if you go 80% and then were to have some type of a regulation in place that, almost like a variance, that you would be able to come back and say, hey, I've got a different way of approaching this, how about this? And then it becomes a stormwater management calculation situation. And we've done projects, other projects, like at University of Maryland and places like that, where there's devices that we can use for the quality too. It's very expensive, but if somebody wanted to go that route, they could.
If we wanted to consider more outdoor art use as opposed to parking or building space, then we would want to lower that percentage.
Lowering it's fine. I mean, that's fine. But you kind of have to know where the maximum is of discharge that you're looking at. So it's a matter of what can go down the pipe. How much can you put down that pipe?
And would providing a public parking lot or structure enable us to lower it? Because like, if we could lower, it'd be easier to deal with the runoff, right? I mean, if we could lower the.
Well, the runoff for the parking lot is an impervious surface. So that area, whatever that area is.
I guess my question is, if we put in a structure, what would the impact be on our maximums for the other areas, right? They wouldn't need as much parking. So could we, in theory, lower our maximums?
Well, yes and no. It depends on how much of the. Okay, so your parking surface, right? Think of it as a pie, right? And no matter how you cut up that pie, if it's 80%, right? Each lot gets 80%. I'm just throwing numbers out here, right? And then you chop that lot in half, right? Well, it's not like you could have that whole lot with the 100% coverage, right? But then you'd have to say to the adjacent lot, well, I'm sorry, you can't have your 80% because we've now taken 100. You've taken 20% of their, if they're equal pieces.
I don't think he's.
That's what you're saying.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
exactly what he's saying. That's what it is. So am I understanding it right, that you're saying, if we factor in, we're going to take 100% of this size, then what do we have left to give to the others?
Yeah.
So if we're going to say, all right, 80% coverage for the CAD is allowed, we're going to take ours off the top. Now that means that everyone else can have 70%. 65%.
And they would need less.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and we're providing a structure for parking, so they wouldn't need as much parking on their, in a particular.
Which in theory would reduce the amount of impervious surface
Correct.
that they would use. Yeah.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
So we have to make some decisions, right? Are we gonna be putting in parking, right? Or, because ideally, we don't want to over-engineer either, right? We don't want to overpay for stuff and then, and not need to use that.
Yeah.
Right, but you don't want to be short either.
Understood,
Yeah.
Yeah.
understood.
Because if you're short, then
Well, I mean, but we're having a discussion because we're not gonna say, okay, 100, and we'll just put it in for 100, because that's
that's
irrational.
that's
So we're trying to find that sweet
the balance where you want to go. And it also depends on what you envision for the type of structures that are going to go in. I mean, if you could have an extremely large structure and no parking.
and still be,
Provide the parking over here.
right, still be an 80% coverage, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say what would happen with the land, just because, there's retail that's available now in some spots that's not taken.
Yep.
Doesn't mean somebody won't build. So we're envisioning like the house on the corner of Wooten and West Willard getting torn down at some point. So big
That
building going there.
could potentially be, that could be an example of something that could happen.
Yeah.
Like just, and then that shifts, how everything works. I think the question is in a way, how much wiggle room do we want to give ourselves in terms of designing it is more important part, right? In terms of designing the infrastructure that will go around whatever it is.
I think if we took the approach of maybe designing it for 80%, because that seems reasonable, and then taking future actions to make sure that we don't get close to that, if we felt that was wise, if we keep in mind what we're, like, just because we say we're going to build it for 80% doesn't mean we have to make the rule right now that we're going to allow 80%. We can go back and adjust that number in the future. But I don't see us, in my mind right now, I don't see a reason to be above 80.
At the end of the day, it comes down to cost, right? So is the cost proportional to the percent of coverage, what you have to put in to match that percent of coverage? Like if I went from 70 to 80, is that 10% more of cost or?
Cost-wise, probably not. It probably works in a sliding scale. Because whether you, it's kind of like a building, right?
Yeah,
Footprint in the building is the footprint of the building, and if you go up, it's cheaper to go up than it is to go
Right.
out.
right,
So
right.
you're probably looking at the same kind of, for stormwater management, the same proportionality
Yeah,
scheme, that, whether it's a 40 by 40 foot hole or a 60 by 40 hole, it's not that much more to do that.
yeah.
Yeah, so then it seems to make sense to build for more.
John, why can't we back into these numbers? Like you have the stormwater inventory, right? The drainage inventory. And we have an idea already what the sidewalks are going to look like and what we could put for storage in there. So why couldn't you say, all right, well, this is the capacity that we already have, and this is our planned upgrades for our pinch points? Why can't you back into those numbers and say, based on this, we can handle this much flow, our time and concentration in this area is going to be 20 minutes or 15 minutes, and then from there determine what your coverage is going to be? Because it seems somewhat irresponsible to be like, oh, we're going to allow 80% coverage, but our current infrastructure can only handle 50%.
Right, but the question is, so this is looking out, planning ahead, right?
Yeah,
Not that we're going to upgrade any of the systems right now.
right. I just don't want to outpace.
Well, we already know we have a problem. So where do we if we went, let's assume we went ahead and did we upgraded to what's there now. We already know we're going to be short if we upgrade to what we are now. We know that. We can see how much percentage more we can get out of it, but it's not going to be as great. And we already know that we have a quality problem that we're going to have to deal with. And the quality problem is based upon the inflow in. So, I mean, if you don't, this is my concern, is if you don't assume the maximum amount that's coming in and design to that maximum amount for future, because this is all future, right? Then when somebody comes in to do something, you may be pulling the same stuff up that you've already done and not, because you're at the problem's not at the beginning, the problem's at the end of the project, at the end of the treatment.
Okay. So I guess because my timeline was off then. So we're talking about, we need to make these upgrades. We're going to make them. To what degree are the upgrades should be made? And those should be built to whatever standard we're thinking about. Okay. Setting. what sort of projections are you using? Just out of curiosity, hydrology just projections are you using? Are you using 50-year? Are you using 100-year? What,
It would be 100-year, that's what.
you're going
we're
to use
projecting to
storm designs for 100-year? Okay. That's a lot of water.
It could be.
Pipes.
That's some big,
And-
those are some big
and the
pipes.
question is once we start down that road, do we have the ability to get that amount of water down the road?
That's a great question.
And we don't know that until we get, that's why we're going down this, that's why I'm kind of leaning on the, so I have a starting point in our calculations of where we're at. So I can say, oh, guys, this is the existing stormwater system. We have, now we're gonna go 80% of that entire drainage area and say it's impervious. It's gotta go somewhere. Where's it gonna go? And do we have an adequate sizing, and what, if not, what sizing do we need to go to? And I'm not worried about the quality right now, I'm just worried about the quantity.
More questions?
No, I mean, for this district, I know we're gonna have something that wants to go in there is gonna be a higher lot coverage. But I think generally, I mean, if we're talking about the arts, right, there's indoor structures so you can protect art, and there's outdoor art, and there's outdoor concert venues that's part of art, right? I mean, I think we could overall see less, like, I think we get away with less, but I don't want to cut us off from having that one thing that's going to be perfect that needs more coverage and not have the stormwater for. So I'm going to tend to be conservative and go with the higher number.
Do we want to see what 80% coverage actually looks like on some aerials or some sort of like, could you give us a mock-up what?
Sure.
What a, aerial of 80%, 60%, what those sort of actually look like?
Yeah.
In our downtown area?
Yeah.
Just because I'm having a hard time sort of imagining that.
So, the area on the other side of West Willard, where K2 is and all of that, that's almost 100%, right? From
Yeah, probably where some of that is close to 100%. But then there's the other house where the house is.
right.
Not where the doctor's office is, but where the house is.
Yeah.
That's probably less than 100% by a goodly amount. So basically what I was going to do is take each one of the lots, now that we're kind of throwing this all around, take each one of the lots and drop it down to 80%. The existing houses, use the existing houses and everything else and bring it into 80%. And also those lots, like for instance, that lot, right? Not that one, the next one over, the other, to the, there you go.
Yeah, here.
Yeah, and figure out what, based on the counties.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to do it, yes.
Yeah, the county's GIS, and in fact, I just sent, did you see it?
I
by the
saw your
chance?
email, so
Yeah.
yes, we
Yeah,
gotta
okay.
talk about that.
So, the county actually does do, not by lot, but by the town, to look at impervious surfaces. And they have a map that blocks out all the impervious surfaces. So I might be able to kind of suck that stuff up and then add whatever the percentage is necessary for impervious surfaces. Now, it may not be in the places that you want the impervious surfaces, but it'll give you the idea.
Yeah, I'm just trying to, I guess because impervious surface, like you said, is not just roof.
No.
What does that actually end up meaning?
Sidewalks, gravel,
Drives.
Yeah, it's a lot of
Guardrails.
driveways and parking lots.
Parking lots, but remember, it's not just asphalt.
Yeah.
In Montgomery County, it's not just asphalt, it's gravel too.
So when,
Packed dirt.
Dirt is okay,
Yeah.
believe it or not. You can,
It's interesting. I Googled gravel to see, like, I was just curious, and apparently it's, a lot of people consider it impervious because if you draw, especially if it's driven on, because it eventually packs
Packs,
down and like
right. now,
it's become almost like cement.
if you go to other counties, they're like, oh, gravel, it's impervious, it's pervious.
Really
Yeah. It doesn't matter.
interesting.
but just as a reference in Martin's Additions where I worked, we had we called it a non-vegetative surface requirement. And so that was 20% of your front yard could not be, no more than 20% of your front yard could be impervious surface. So your driveway counted, in that case, your porch counted, your walkway counted. And so, so you could only have some limitations there on what couldn't be essentially grass, So depending on how you look at it, it can be various different things.
Okay. I don't have anything else. Anyone have anything else? It looks like we've covered all of the follow-up issues except for staff recommendations for future work sessions.
Yes, so basically, I presented in the packet, the last page of the packet that I gave you guys is is our follow-up, which I sent you all in an email, of the things that we discussed at the last work session, okay? So, basically, and there's one thing that I want to talk about here, but this is more just a summary. There's a couple of things that we can make decisions on, like our approach to parking and things like that. Do we want the guideline idea? Do we want it to be, here are the guidelines for parking, but make the approval of parking for new projects in the Cultural Arts District your guys' approval? Or do you want to have very hard requirements that they have to meet? That was sort of a discussion point. So do we want to have a follow-up on that? Or do you have a preference in those options? We talked about the green space. We talked about zoning is another thing that we wanted to just note about with utilizing the form-based zoning. And we can get into, and that's more with the landscape architect, excuse me. That is another part of a potential work session where we could sort of go through and talk about the different options there. And then the last thing is we had talked about, Stephen had brought this up, with the design guidelines, and you talked about University of Maryland dean that had done some work, and I didn't know if you had resources or things like that, or wanted to reach out or whatever we wanted to do.
Yeah, I did look up a few things.
Okay.
including some of the things that Garth had done.
Okay,
So
perfect.
I'd be happy to bring those into a section. if
Okay.
That's helpful.
Yeah, that'd be perfect. I just wanted
Yep.
to kind of see what topics we wanted to match in another session and maybe have that stuff, have the landscape architect, and sort of go through sort of like those zoning questions, if we've any follow-up on the parking question, and then these design elements, which I think feed into the zoning one, so the two can be
Yep.
sort of compatible in that discussion.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to see if we wanted to do this outside of a regular meeting, or if we wanted to, we could also do like we did in August and not have a regular meeting, but instead have a work session.
I like that, doing that, because it's like, I don't know, it just feels like there's more, like you go in the other room and it feels like you're there for a different reason, and there's not like, updates and all, it's just like you're there to like get the thing done, so I personally think that don't do a regular meeting and just do a work session, that'd be my vote.
I thought it was very productive.
Yep.
I think it's very productive.
So then, do we want to, so that becomes then a scheduling question. As I said, we may or may not have variances at some point. So if we want to make a decision, say, usually we require it that they have to be 2 weeks in advance of a meeting to get in their applications anyways. So maybe if 2 weeks prior to the October meeting, we have no application, I can send you guys an email and say, We do not. Do you want to have a work session?
Let's just do the work session the Monday night at 7 if there's no applications.
Yeah, that's, I
Is that what
mean,
you're saying?
yeah,
Yeah, okay, cool. Because
Yeah.
we're all used to that anyway, so.
right. I'm just saying, just substitute. So just do it as it
Yeah,
at the same
exactly.
time.
Yep.
But just different. Okay.
Another facet of the zoning kind of guidelines is
Yes.
also use-based too. and
Yes.
Thinking about, what I was wondering is, and this came from the conversation about running into David and talking to him about plans. I was wondering if maybe we want to sit down with Riverworks and the Historic Medley District folks at some point, just to talk about like what kind of uses everybody envisions, like what's everyone trying to foster in
It's a good idea.
Because that might give us a sense of
Yeah.
I think
form-based zoning and the coverage and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
assuming that we do a work session, is there a way that we could extend a invitation to key stakeholders
Oh,
in
yeah.
the area?
Absolutely. Hmm.
It would be great if, it wasn't just on the agenda, but that if we invited,
Oh, yeah.
key.
Do we want to do that in a meeting or a work session? Because like I could see, David loves to talk and, Knight Kiplinger, if he comes, he loves to talk. Like that could be the whole work session, just them like spitballing. You know what I mean? I'm serious. Like, have you ever sat down with those guys?
Yeah,
Like,
they're lovely people.
they're great.
They're
great,
wonderful.
They're great.
Yeah.
And David's got great vision, but like,
Yeah.
it wouldn't be quick, I don't think.
I
I do
think-
like that idea. I do like the notion of sitting down with
We
them,
could
but
do two kinds of
Yeah.
things, maybe.
yeah,
We could ask them for like a statement or a presentation, and that would maybe be like, hey, we would like to invite you, and we'd like to extend like 10 minutes for you to sort of, like,
Yeah.
Specific question, specific time frame to answer.
yeah.
A presentation if they want to use it.
I think it's reasonable to invite them formally, but also put boundaries on
Yeah.
that this is our work session,
Yeah.
not.
We want to be respectful of theirs.
Yeah, we want to be respectful of everyone's time.
Yeah.
It is our work session to make progress.
What,
And I kind of feel like David and Sandy deserve that like latitude, all the work they've done, they put in,
Disagree.
and plus he's got great ideas. I mean, a lot of them.
All right.
so while this is still up on the board there, are we generally comfortable with
Yeah.
this arrangement?
Yes.
Okay, all right. All right.
I think, yeah. The only thing that I would say is that looking to the future, we'll be flexible on whether it's going to be a work session or a
Yep.
meeting. But high priority would be to sort of set down what that lot coverage is, because that dictates the stormwater, and the stormwater is a pressing issue. Are we all comfortable with sort of making that a priority for our next session, regardless of whether it's just a work session?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've been asked and wondering if we could, like, we've been working on this a long time. And, like, we don't have a progress bar.
Wish we did.
But how much more do we think we need to do? And, understanding that we don't always know how much long it's going to take to do things, but how much more do we need to do before we're ready to present something? And are we already at the point where we could present something and even put something forward for a zoning change, even without all these decisions being made? And should we consider doing that if we are?
Well, I would say that I think we could definitely, I mean, there are parts of this that we definitely have settled on, things like we went through the use chart, we went through various different parts that we already have firm, this is how we're going to do this, right? There are other things like the design stuff, that stuff where we want to have a more, I think, a coherent plan to put forward that sort of ties everything together. It might, that discussion might be one that we want to have, and then have some kind of presentation or things like that. That's my, just off the top of my head thought.
We wouldn't necessarily, if I'm understanding you correctly, and we wouldn't necessarily need to have the design down to say that we're designating this area
Yep.
as the cultural arts district, and these are the approved uses.
Yes, that part, I think we've made that decision, I would say, based on our previous conversations and what we went through, going through the chart and looking at everybody's.
But until we officially declare it or do whatever we need to do,
Yeah,
other uses are permitted.
correct. 'Cause the code itself has not been changed.
I think you're onto something, and I think that we can add additional sort of guidelines by amendments in the future, but we could establish, you know, that this area is, I
Yeah,
do think that we are probably, we've covered signage, we've covered,
yep,
we can probably nail down parking.
yeah.
Covered, you know,
Uses.
uses. There, I feel
We've
like-
done a substantial amount, and
Right.
that's one of the things that I think makes sense, which is connecting it all together and saying, here are the things that we've done, and here's the entire packet of information. And then we can say, here's this, and as a starting point of saying, this is sort of phase one of what we've done, and this is complete.
I remember writing the comprehensive plan, and like, we got kind of like, sort of like drifting or whatever, and then like you guys were like, okay, like we're gonna have to like figure this out. Like I think it would help, and I I hesitate to like say this because I don't want to put work in your lap, but like if you had like a bunch of questions, like pointed questions, like that you needed to like get the answers to in order to start writing this.
Yeah.
Like, like so that we don't just talk and like, spitball and all this stuff, but like you say, like, do you want A, B, or C? Do you want A, B, or C? Like, like, or whatever, like.
Right.
So we have to make decisions.
And that's what I felt we got out of very well last time.
I think that's right,
presented at the last work session.
Yeah, I think
had
that's
a bunch
right.
of questions.
You did a good job, yeah.
This document here that has a couple of things where we can say A or B or whatever is the result of that. This has a lot of those things down.
Right.
What I'm thinking, and I agree with you, is putting together like something that says the Planning Commission recommends these uses in the Cultural Arts District. And then that be one section of it. The Planning Commission recommends that these be the sign guidelines in the Cultural Arts District. That'd be a second. And then that allows us to say, we've already done this, we've already done this.
Yeah.
Because it's more, to me, the things that come down to are more detailed things. So like how the street is going to look, how the stormwater is going to play into this. And, even tonight, we've made progress on some of those things where we could say,
Right.
80% is 80%, we're good there. So it's just,
None of that has anything to do with preserving the area as a cultural arts district.
right.
And that's how we're gonna,
This is all, so I will say that I have spent a ridiculous amount of time the last several months reading UDOs. And it does not seem unreasonable, although I am not a lawyer, you would have to probably check with legal, that you could draft some sort of new ordinance with place markers to be filled in.
Oh, yeah. We can say reserved and things
Yeah,
like that.
reserved for,
Yeah.
yeah, like it
But-
seems reasonable that section that we're missing
Yeah.
would just be reserved and then later
Oh,
updated.
no, totally. I'm just saying that, like, I think we have good components of things to just put it together and say, here's this part, here's this part, here's this part. Here, and then even give you guys, here's the things that are outstanding. Because I think at this point there's going to be some zoning tweaks that we're going to have to make. And that's going to be a chunk of it. But the rest of it is just things here and there that we need to do. But even tonight, and what we've done previously, I think has gotten us to sort of some definitive, yes, we've done this, here's this, we can vote on it, we can put it in legislative language, all of that kind of stuff.
we make that priority before work
Yeah.
sessions for.
Yeah, no, I think it should, yeah. Does anyone have any, reservations in making that a priority to move forward an actual code?
No, I think that's good.
That makes sense. I don't remember if the uses were in the last packet.
Yes, it was, I can share it with you again, but it was, I had it up on the screen as well at the work session, but.
Yeah, the kind of things that I'm thinking about a little bit are like craft traditions and things like that.
Okay.
Like one of the things I was thinking about is looking at the area, is you've got Morningstar on that corner taking lot. But Morningstar is also like a long-held, like craft tradition from the area that serviced farms
Right.
and stuff like that. And are there other kinds of things where somebody could set up like a small workshop that served, actual like customers who come in that would be appropriate for the area?
And we talked about, remember you'd brought up metalworking as one of the things that we had talked about. And so one of the decisions that the body previously made before you joining
Yeah.
was to have a definition for like multiple,
Makerspace.
makerspace and how you could do that. And so that's and I'm not sure if that made it to the spreadsheet part of it, but it was in one of the things I had written. So I will make sure that that gets included in the legislative language, but that was something that was in there. And I think the way it was in there was not necessarily in the use chart way, but in the definitions, which we also updated. And that's another thing to say that we've definitively already done, is updated the definitions. And so all of that stuff, we can just put a packet together that just says we've done this, and here's the reference for that and this. And then you guys can just vote on that and say, here's all the changes we've made here, and then present it to. There might be a few things that we want to tweak, like probably it's worth, which I wrote in one of the things, but add to like a preamble that sort of states the intent of the cultural arts district. And I had written something like that up in one of the things, but I'll include that in as well, just as a thing to put in the legislative as well as for the whereases and all of that part. So I'll make sure that that's there as well. And then we can share that, and then you can sort of take it as a body, and then you can present it, and then you can present it at the commissioners meeting as, here's what we've done, and here's the.
That'd be amazing.
That would be, the questions I'm getting are actually not coming from the commissioners, they're coming from general people.
Right, yeah. But I mean, that's the next step in doing this stuff anyway, so it allows us to put it that way.
Yeah,
That's exciting.
that'd be great.
I make a motion, we adjourn?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Was that a signal?